This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Glatstein, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, a topic in davening and tefillah, and that is regarding if one who made a mistake, in their tefillah. Take a look. This is Taisvis and Masech Brachos, Daf Chav Vav Amud Beis. Taisvis Brachos Chav Vav Amud Beis. Okay, on the third line, Kasav Rabbeinu Yehuda. Rabbeinu Yehuda writes the following: Im Tav lo hisker Rosh Chodesh b'mincha. Let's say like this: it's Rosh Chodesh, and you're davening mincha, and you forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai. Now comes to Mariv. Now, what do you do if you forget Ya'aleh v'Yavai? You have to daven over again.
Not by Mariv.
1 second. Normally, if somebody completely forgets Ya'aleh v'Yavai, they need to repeat the Shemona Esrei. After all, Ya'aleh v'Yavai is a critical addition to Shemona Esrei. So if you would have remembered right away, you would have to repeat the Shemona Esrei. Normally, if you remember by the next tefillah, if the next tefillah is also Rosh Chodesh, you're going to have to daven the next tefillah twice. So here's the thing: you davened mincha, you realize you didn't say Ya'aleh v'Yavai. And now the problem is Mariv time.
It's
not Rosh Chodesh anymore.
Second day of the month.
It's the second day of the month.
So you daven two right.
So what are you going to do?
Why?
You can daven Mariv. Okay, you have to daven a normal Mariv like any other Mariv. Now you're going to daven a second tefillah to make up for missing the mincha.
No, you didn't
What would the
You missed the Ya'aleh v'Yavai.
So what would the tachlis be? What would the point be to daven Mariv again without a Ya'aleh v'Yavai? You didn't say Ya'aleh v'Yavai the first time, so you're going to add insult to injury and nachamal daven without a Ya'aleh v'Yavai. What point is there to daven another Shemona Esrei without a Ya'aleh v'Yavai? If Mariv was also Rosh Chodesh, you understand. You daven one Mariv for Mariv, and another time to make up for Mincha, because you missed Ya'aleh v'Yavai in the first Shemona Esrei, so now you're going to daven again to get in your Ya'aleh v'Yavai. But if Mariv isn't Rosh Chodesh anymore, what's the point in davening Mariv again without a Ya'aleh v'Yavai? Right? Rabbeinu Yehuda says, Dilama yispalel oid. Why should you daven again? Hare kvar hispalel kol tfilas hamincha mi ba'oid yoim. You've already davened a mincha dika tefillah. You davened a full Shemona Esrei with 19 brachos. What was the only thing you were missing in that Shemona Esrei? Ya'aleh v'Yavai. Levad Rosh Chodesh shaloi hisker, except for Ya'aleh v'Yavai that you didn't mention. Im kain, if that's the case, you daven 19 brachos. The only thing you're missing is a Ya'aleh v'Yavai. Now it's Mariv. You can't say Ya'aleh v'Yavai because it's not Rosh Chodesh anymore. Im kain ein marviach klum. Nothing to gain. You have nothing to gain, right? Im yachzor v'yispalel b'matzai Rosh Chodesh. If you go and daven again, matzai Rosh Chodesh, hare lo yazker oid tfilas Rosh Chodesh. You're not going to be mentioning any more Rosh Chodesh. So you say, but at least I'll be davening Shemona Esrei. I already daven Shemona Esrei. I daven mincha, right? V'yurches kvar hispal. I already daven Shemona Esrei. So you hear the case. You have a guy. It's a mincha Rosh Chodesh. He forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai, he was spacing out, he was thinking about who knows what. He missed Ya'aleh v'Yavai, comes Mariv time, and what does he do? So he davens the regular Mariv. Now he wants to know, do I have to make up Mincha because I wasn't Yotzei the Mincha? So we say, yeah, you weren't Yotzei the Mincha, but you have nothing to gain by davening Mariv again because it's no longer Rosh Chodesh.
So that's how we paskin?
That's how Rabbeinu Yehuda paskins.
But we in Shulchan Aruch, what's paskin?
We'll have to see. That is the shita of Rabbeinu Yehuda, right? It seems pretty logical. There's no point in repeating Shemona Esrei if your repetition is not correcting the original mistake. The only point in davening again is to correct the original mistake. If you're not correcting it because it's not Rosh Chodesh, there's no point in saying it again.
Not only Rosh Chodesh. For example, if you didn't say Asher Echad on Shabbos,
yeah,
and you forgot to stop in Mincha, and now you're going to say a second Shemona Esrei at Mariv, but you can't say a Shabbos.
So you want to say like this? Let's say a guy
He says
by mincha. Well, what would the halacha be, Rabbi say, if a person b'chlal forgot to daven mincha on Shabbos? What would they
daven two Shemona?
Would he daven two marivs?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but the Marav is
Yeah? What's the point in davening of Vachadika Tefillah? You have to make up a Shabbos Tefillah.
Yeah, but he didn't daven at all. He making up the
The
tefillah.
answer is, if you don't daven Mincha on Shabbos, you didn't daven. So you have to make up a davening.
Let's say if
And
he-
now it's not Shabbos
I'll
anymore.
tell you what
So you
is-
say a Vachadika davening.
if
But in this case, he davened. He said Shemona Esrei. The only thing he didn't do was he didn't say Yalav Yavai. So this Chacham from the Manishtana, what does he want to do? He says, I have to daven again. We say, you're not accomplishing anything by davening again. Because your tefillah is not correcting the original problem.
and Enochanama, the halacha would be if he davened a Wochendike Shmonesser Shabbos by Mincha, a Wochendike he davened, but he didn't say Ata Echad. He said Ata Choinen. Then he wouldn't have to daven two Shmonesers.
That we could think about.
That's what he says at the end.
Similar.
He says it at the end.
This year Rosh Hashanah.
He says it at the end.
No, but also,
He says the same thing would be in this position.
Okay, Tosfos
Because
says
it's like
that,
Yalav
but it's
Yavai.
not so pashut.
Technically, we're Yotze with a Vachadik davening, only the Rabbah.
Right,
Why
correct.
change it because of the
Tercha de Tzibur,
So
right?
technically, if we're okay with it, why should we repeat from this?
Okay,
That's
okay,
my
that's a valid point. Yes.
There's a whole discussion about why we do davening to begin with, right?
Okay.
One Lomdus says it's because of korbanos, right?
Right.
Korban. We have a concept of korbanos when the time is up, the korban is.
You mean in Bechlal, what's the whole concept of Tashlumin, Avar, right? Avar Zmanei Batal Karbonai? Okay.
We'll come to that one.
Okay, that's a good question on the concept of Tzuras Tashlumin. We're not getting into how Tzuras Tashlumin works. We're just getting into one specific area. The area is a guy on Mincha did not say Yalav Yavai. He did say a regular Shemona Esrei. Mariv is no longer Rosh Chodesh. Is there any point in repeating the Shemona Esrei? Says Rabbeinu Yehuda, there is no point. Does everybody agree with Rabbeinu Yehuda? No.
definitely.
Who disagrees? The Rush, Masechta Brachos, Perek Tfilas HaShachar, Ois Beis. Nira, De'im Shalchach v'loi hispalo Yalav Yavai b'mincha b'Rosh Chodesh. If someone forgot and he didn't say Yalav Yavai mincha on Rosh Chodesh, lo yispalo b'matzoi Rosh Chodesh tayim. There's no point in davening matzoi Rosh Chodesh twice. Kivan de'ein lo lahasko shel Rosh Chodesh. Since you can't say Yalav Yavai in Mariv, Lama, because it's not Rosh Chodesh, Lama Yasu Yisrael Yirches, why should you daven again? Kivan Shekvar Isbaloisa. You already said it. Whose opinion is that?
The Rush.
The Rush. That's the opinion of that we had in Tosfos, Rabbeinu Yehuda. Rabbeinu Yehuda. There's no point in davening again if your new Shemona Esrei is not correcting the problem. But skip down to 5 lines from the bottom. The last word on line is v'chachmei.
Provencia.
Says the Rosh, but v'chachmei Provencia. Who are the chachmei Provencia? The sages of France, of Provence. Hayu Aimrim, they would say, no, you do need to daven again. Kivan shalayatza yedei chavasa bezu hatfila. If you davened mincha on Rosh Chodesh and you didn't say Yalav Yavai, since you're not yoytze the chiyuv,
It's not a valid tefillah.
havalei keilu lo hispalel. It's like you didn't daven.
That's really quick.
Titzarech lehispalo shtayim le'erim. You have to daven again.
I think that's how we pass.
Af al pi shein masker shel Rosh Chodesh. Even though you're not saying anything of Rosh Chodesh, oy shel Shabbos. Say the sages of France, of Provence, they say like this: if you don't say Yalav Yavai mincha time on Rosh Chodesh, how do we look at that tefillah? Were you yaitze the tefillah?
It wasn't a valid tefillah.
In your bank account in Shamayim, do they put a check in the tefillah box?
No.
No. So you have to daven. This guy didn't daven like an Earl Chiyuv. You didn't daven, you gotta daven again. You'll say, but by me davening again, I'm not doing anything more than I did the first time. The first time I didn't say Yalav Yavai. You're telling me I should daven without Yalav Yavai to make up for davening without Yalav Yavai? We say, yeah. What we want you to do is, you didn't daven, now you have to daven, and right now the definition of davening is davening without a Yalav Yavai.
Those 19 brachos that you said by in Mincha without the Yalav Yavai, are they brachal of Akala?
Yes.
What are they?
No.
How can you say it's not
right.
a tefillah?
Yes.
That's right.
You're davening the exact same words that you normally daven at tefillah. So you You what? You want to do that? Say Yalav Yava without the punishment.
Were they a bracha levatala?
What were they? If they're not tefillah, according to this Mandiyama, they're not a tefillah. The stam is garnished. What were they?
Nothing.
Hard to understand.
What do you mean? Bechlal, let's understand. Even according to, let's say a person daven Shemona Esrei and he left out a bracha. And what he has to daven again. What happened to the other 18 brachas? Were they bracha levatala?
Yes.
What if somebody daven Shemona Esrei and he didn't have kavanah to the per shamilos of avos? He's not yotzei. Were they bracha levatala?
Most of us.
No.
So we have to think about that. But there's a machlokes over here. Again, the case is Mincha Rosh Chodesh. A guy didn't say Yalav Yavai, and now it comes Marav. It's no longer Rosh Chodesh. Says Rabbeinu Yehuda, quoted in Taisus and Brachos, quoted in the Rosh and Brachos. It's Keilu. Says the Rosh and the Rabbeinu Yehuda. Don't daven again because Ma marviach einoi marviach klum. The lashon of the Ri is ein marviach klum. You're not gaining anything. You already daven 18 brachos. Elamai what? You're missing Yalav Yavai. Why daven without Yalav Yavai for not davening without Yalav Yavai? I mean, it's like from Chelm, Rabbeinu Yehuda says. Right? He says, Ma einu marviach klum. You're not gaining anything.
I have a question.
You say, einu marviach klum.
By itself.
What?
If you forgot to say Yalav
That's
Yavai,
nothing. You have to say it in Shemona Esrei. There's no such thing as saying Yalav Yavai.
I have a question.
It has to be, the tikkun, the takana was to say it in Shemona Esrei.
Okay, if you made a mistake, why aren't you able just to go over and to say it as I? It's not a bracha in and of itself.
They weren't masakin just to say Yalav Yavai. They were masakin to say it in that location.
Why not? What makes Yalav Yavai that it has to be part of the Shemona Esrei?
That's how they were misakin.
Part of Shemona Esrei has to be, you have to mention Rosh Chodesh. Not good enough to say Agun Chodesh. You have to say it in the Tefillah. The Chachmei Provencia say like this.
Hallel is not part of Shemona Esrei.
They were masakin Hallel is part of Shemona Esrei. Hallel is something else. The Chachmei Provencia say like this. Since you didn't say Yalav Yavai in Mincha, you're not Yotzei, you're Chiyuv. It's like you didn't daven. You have to daven again. And therefore, you daven Mariv on Motzei Rosh Chodesh without Yalav Yavai. So it's Machlokes Rabbeinu Yehuda.
Even though you're not gaining anything, because you don't need to.
Even though you're not gaining anything. So Machlokes Rabbeinu Yehuda and the Chachmei Provencia. So what's the halacha? What do we do? Who do we paskin like?
I think we say another Shemona Esrei. I think the halacha is we say another Shemona Esrei.
It's a suffix.
So what do you do?
So what do we do? Says the Rosh, V'hadavar muchra. That means it's hanging in the balance. It's tilting. It's tilting. We don't know which way to go. So therefore, what do? So you say, well, daven again. Daven again. Rabbeinu Yehuda would say to daven again, and it's bracha levatala. Not to daven again, the Chachmei Provencia would say, you didn't daven at all.
Otherwise she's parakulayaim. So what's the problem?
So what do? Lakach hayoymer Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina therefore says, Shehanach en latzis minat safek. The only way to get out of the safek is sheyispalel oisel la'erev b'tayras nedava. You should daven again as a volunteer offering.
Like he says,
right?
As a what?
A volunteer offering, right? Right, without Yalav Yavai, you can't daven Yalav. It's not Rosh Hashanah. Right? If I wanted right now to daven Shacharis again, assuming I already daven Shacharis, right? Am I allowed to daven again? No. I could daven it. I want to make a trust Nadava. Now the halach is a person, how many times could you daven a day? 1,000,000 times.
But you have to have an adova.
As long as what? You have to add something to the Shemona Esrei. You have to have a new kavana, a new hargasha, a new tefillah. You have to add something to the original tefillah. Now, we don't ordinarily do that because, halavai, you should have kavana the first time. This is not something we do. But it is permitted. So therefore, says Rabbeinu Yoina, in order to be concerned for the opinion of the Chachmei Provencia, who say you have to daven again, what should you do? Daven a tefillas nedava. However, in this situation, you don't have to add anything. Even though ordinarily you have to add something, in this case you don't have to add anything. Ve'ein tzarich lechadesh badavar. De'kivan shespal oisa adar chasafek. Since you're davening it again in order to be yotzei, the chiyuv of the Chachmei Provencia who say you haven't davened in the first place, ein lecha chidush gadol mizeh k'deprishus la'el. this is the greatest addition. This is the greatest Hosafa. You're really adding to the Shemona Esrei. How are you adding to the Shemona Esrei? Because this time, you're going to be Yotzei. The first time, you didn't say Ya'alav Yavai. And therefore you weren't Yotzei the Shemona Esrei. So now by davening again, you're getting the added fact that you're definitely Yotzei, the original Shemona Esrei. So therefore, in deference to the Chachmei Provencia, you daven again. But in deference to Rabbeinu Yehuda, you don't daven again as a chiyuv, you daven again as an adava.
According to Chachmei Provencia,
Yeah.
if I didn't say Ya'alav by Marav, Emin Chachmei Kodesh by Balayla, you don't have to say it again. So would they say that they should daven again Halvai Shel Pal Kol Hayom?
No.
Why?
Because they were never masakin to that it's not a tefillah. According to, they're only masakin. It's
so
not.
He does it for an adova. He should daven again for an adova.
No, they don't recommend that because according to the Chachmei Provencia, it's only not a tefillah because you're mechuyev to say it. But if you're not mechuyev to say it,
to bench when you didn't have to eat.
Right? No, there's no nidava. Right.
Only when there's a chiyuv.
Only when there's a chiyuv.
You know that there's Sidurim that says by benching. I forget to say benching. There's a
That's different.
Yeah. There's a way.
Sidurim add on that you could say.
Right before, right after Bani Yerushalayim, Bani Bracham Yerushalayim, Amen.
Once you
Right? You can make a short bracha. Yeah. So Rabbi said, Rabbeinu Yoina is saying, who do we paskin like? We're not sure. How do we get around it? Daven again, but don't daven because you have to. Daven as a Tars Nadava. How does the Shulchan Aruch paskin? Shulchan Aruch paskins like Rabbeinu Yoina. Look at number 3. Tab in Mincha Shel Shabbos. If you made a mistake, Mincha on Shabbos. V'yispal Shemona Esrei.
That's 3, right?
Number 3. V'loi Hisker Shel Shabbos. Mispalel b'matzah Shabbos Shtayim. Okay? You have to say right like you said before. You didn't say Ata Echad b'Shimcha Echad. What did you do? You said Ata Chen L'Adam Das. You daven matzah Shabbos twice. Ve'enoi mavdil b'shniya. You don't make Havdalah in.
You don't say Atachan.
Right. So you daven 2 maravs. The first marav is a regular marav. You're going to say Atachan Antanu. The second marav is to make up for Mincha. You don't say Atachan Antanu. The Yispal Eloisa B'Taras Nedava. But daven it as a Tfilas Nedava. Why is it Tfilas Nedava? Because Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, what are you davening 2 maravs for? You already davened the Vacha Dikishman Esay Mincha time. Elamai, you didn't daven a Shabbos Dikishman Esay. You're not gaining anything by davening a Shabbos Dikish. You're not gaining anything by davening Nacham Ala Vacha Dikishman Esay.
So let me ask you, if Motzi Shabbos was the first day Rosh Chodesh,
yeah.
So now the first Ma'ariv you're going to say Ya'alav Yavo.
Right.
The second Ma'ariv, which is now with Torah Nadavi, you're going to say Ya'alav Yavo also? Why?
Because it's Rosh Chodesh.
What?
Because it's Rosh Chodesh.
It's part of the Shemona Esrei.
Because it's Rosh Chodesh.
The only problem is
One second. Look, says Shulchan Aruch. The same thing would be that if you didn't say Ya'alav Yavai, Mincha and Rosh Chodesh, what should you do? Marav, daven 2 marivs as a Taras Nedava. Right? Says the Magen Avram. Why is it Taras Nedava? Misham Diyei Shoyrim De'ein Tzarech Le'espalo Shenis. There is an opinion you don't have to daven again. Dema Marviach Bazeh Dakfar Espalo Shemona Esrei. What do you gain? Because you already davened. Whose opinion is that?
The Rosh.
The Rosh and who else? Rabbeinu Yehuda. V'yei Shoyrim the Tfilas HaRishayna Kiman Deles Adami. Some say the first Shemona Esrei is nothing. Kiman Shesbal B'Shabbos Yud Ches. Since you daven the Vacha Dikah Shemona Esrei on Shabbos. So therefore what do? Lachein Yispalo B'Nadava. Therefore you daven in Nadava. So we have a very big machlekes here between Rabbeinu Yehuda and the Chachmei Provencia. Rabbeinu Yehuda says, don't daven again if you're not doing anything more than you did the first time. And the Chachmei Provencia says, the first tefillah is none, you do it again. What's the machlekes? What are they arguing about?
When the Shemona Esrei is Myron.
Is the Shemona Esrei a valid Shemona Esrei?
It's different in any
If it's
way.
not
If it's a valid Shemona Esrei.
What's the point of disagreement between the Rabbeinu
By not
Yehuda?
saying the Ya'alav Yavai, it's a valid Shemona Esrei. It's a valid
If by somebody who didn't say Ya'alav Yavai, how do we look at it? Do we look at it
as if he didn't
that
daven.
he davened the Shemona Esrei, He just missed a certain thing you have to stick in. That's it. He missed an insertion. The Rabbeinu Yehuda says, when we look at a guy who missed the Yalav Yava, you know what we look at it? He davened a great Shemana Esrei. You know why he has to daven again? Because there's this, in the Art Scroll Siddur on Rosh Chodesh, it's not enough just to say the words. You have to say the words in gray also. And if you don't say those gray words, so you have to daven the whole Shemana Esrei again. Why? Because you davened without saying the gray words. Now you have to daven with saying the gray words.
Because the chiyuv was for that.
In other words, we have a chiyuv to say the Haisafa.
He didn't do the chiyuv.
Or do we say,
or
do we say, like this, that if you don't say Yalav Yavai, you destroyed the Shemana Esrei.
Exactly.
You didn't daven a Shemana Esrei. It's
chiyuv.
not that you did a Shemana Esrei without the addition. You didn't daven a Shemana Esrei. That's not a Shemana Esrei.
I understand. If you forgot it on Motzi Shabbos, you don't have to repeat.
Correct. Yes.
Because you have the Havdalah.
Okay.
But here's an insertion. And
that you do have to repeat.
What?
That you do have to repeat.
The Yalav we have to repeat.
Right.
What's the difference?
Because Yalav is more critical.
And Havdalah.
But the question is, how do we view it? Why do you have to repeat it? Do you repeat it because you left out a critical insertion? Or do you have to daven again because without that, you didn't daven? Without a Yalav you didn't daven. So Rabbeinu Yehuda says, you did daven. You just left out a critical insertion. So therefore, what's the point of davening again? You're not saying the insertion the second time.
That's the point. If you're not saying what you missed,
yeah,
why you doing the...
So the Chachmei Provencia say, if you don't say a Yalav Yavai, when the Chachamim say to say Yalav Yavai, that is not a Shemana Esrei. It's not a Shemana Esrei. You didn't daven. You didn't daven.
So there's a difference between, was it a Shemona Esrei or
was it not?
That's the basis.
Exactly.
Was
that's
it
like
bracha the first time or was it not?
Oh, maybe not. Maybe everyone would agree it's not a bracha of Atala. But still, that's not a Shemona Esrei. It was a good bracha, you daven with kavana, but you don't get credit for the Shemona Esrei. Maybe it's not a bracha of Atala.
It's hard to understand the Torah of Provencia and why they say it's not a tefillah. If that tefillah is considered a tefillah for what, 95% of the times that we daven Shemona Esrei?
For Rosh Chodesh, the way Chazal are masaking it is
like Mafreya, so it takes the Mafreya and it wipes out what you said.
Yeah, you didn't daven it. You don't get credit. It's not a tefillah. You deviated.
Credit for the Yalav.
You deviated from the way the Chachamim formulated the tefillah. That's not a tefillah today. Today on Rosh Chodesh, it's not a tefillah. Look at number 5. The bracha.
Yeah, by saying Shemona Esrei without Chonen.
Everyone would agree. Yes. And everyone would agree that's not a Shemona Esrei. Well, let's talk about that case. Imagine if someone would leave out a bracha. Let's like this: a guy davened a wonderful Shemona Esrei. He davened an hour-long Shemona Esrei, and he left out Rabbeinu.
Okay.
And he left it out Mincha Erev Shabbos. So now now it's Shabbos. Now we say daven twice. What do you mean daven twice? I have no Rabbeinu in my Shabbos Dikkur Shemona Esrei. The halacha is he davens twice.
He davens twice. Yeah.
Why?
Shabbos Dikkur Shemona Esrei, right?
Two Shabbos, and why? Right. No, but why should he daven a Shabbos Dikkur Shemona Esrei from this?
It wasn't a valid Shemona Esrei.
Right. Because you never davened the Shemona Esrei. You blew it.
So you do this.
Exactly.
See, but I could argue that if you left out Rifa'inu, then you never davened the Shemona Esrei that's ever considered a valid Shemona Esrei. But if you left out Yalav V'Yavu and you said the other 19 brachas, which is 95% of the time what we consider a tefillah, how could you now say L'mafreya it's not a tefillah?
So you're saying like the Rabbeinu Yehuda.
I was trying to figure the math out.
You're saying like
88%.
Okay. You're saying like Rabbeinu Yehuda. Rabbeinu Yehuda says, give me a break, because a guy forgot a Yalav V'Yavai. How could you say he didn't daven? Yesterday it was a tefillah. Tomorrow it's a tefillah. Today it's not a tefillah. That shows what? What does that show about Yalav V'Yavai? It's just an addition. It's just the Hoysafa. So therefore, what's the point of davening again? If by davening I'm not saying the Hoysafa. But the Chachmei Provencia say, Yalav V'Yavai and Rosh Chodesh is not just a Hoysafa, it's a critical Parsha. Look at number 5. That's how the Stifler explains what's the machlokes between Rabbeinu Yehuda and the Chachmei Provencia. He says,
who were the Chachmei Provencia?
The Balei Tosfos of France. The Bali Tois v'yisoid machlukasam hi diladas hatoisvis u'da'ame. According to Toisus in his camp, gam heicha sheshachach haskaras yalav v'yavoy yotzi dei chayvat tefillah. If you forget yalav v'yavoy, you're yotzei the chiv of tefillah. V'loy nechsheves kilu lo yispalel. It's not like you didn't daven. It's just you have to daven again. Right? Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, if you forget yalav v'yavoy, it's not that you didn't daven, it's just you have to daven again. Rak ditzach lasa. Yeah, you get schar. You get schar. You just have a chiv to daven again. Rak ditzach lasa uspal b'shvil haskar the Rosh Chodesh she'adayin lo kiyim. You have to go and daven again because of the Rosh Chodesh. U'makayma here b'tfilah. You have to say yalav v'yavoy in davening. Aval matzah Rosh Chodesh in makam l'tashlumim. There is no place to make up a Rosh Chodesh. In other words, according to Rabbeinu Yehuda, if you remember you forgot yalav v'yavoy right away, what do you have to do? Davening. Why? Why do I have? So just say yalav v'yavoy. Why do I have to say oh Shemona Esrei? Because the takana is to say yalav v'yavoy and Shemona Esrei. But matzah Rosh Chodesh in makam l'tashlumim kim shidei chayvet tefillah kfar yatz. I was ready to yotzei of the tefillah. V'azkara halo yuchal asos achshav. I can't mention any addition now. Aval das chespei. Who's the chespei?
Chachma Provencia.
Yeah. Who the chol ha'mechaser askara? Anytime you're missing a mention, havalei kimishana mimatveya shatavu chachamim. It's like you deviated from the way they formulated. You did not get credit for the tefillah.
And they make a difference, but the Antonio is not like that. It's not that serious.
Right.
Not only that, you can even say a few words.
Yes. Hey, Rabbi, so what's the halacha like this? You're davening for the Amid on Rosh Chodesh. You're the Chazan. And the Chazan, in his repetition of the Shemona Esrei, forgets yalav v'yavoy.
Did he say it in the Shtor Shemona Esrei? He said it in the Shtor Shemona Esrei?
Yeah.
And everybody else said it in the Shtor Shemona Esrei?
Yeah.
So then he has to take a poll of the respondents. Anybody forget yalav v'yavoy? If everybody says no, nobody forgot, then there's no reason for him to repeat because everybody was yotzei the first time around. If somebody forgot, then he has to repeat it again because they need to be yotzei to hear yalav v'yavoy.
They weren't yotzei tefillahs.
Hatzibur.
They weren't yotzei tefillahs hatzibur.
You know, you have to be yotzei with the shots.
Again, the shots forgot yalav v'yavoy. What do you do now? Obviously, b'shas ma'aseh was like, no, yalav v'yavoy, right? Right? You have guys who come to shul. You ask them, well, how come you came today? You know, that's what they came for, to jump on the guy, not to make sure he doesn't forget, to make sure he forgets and he corrects them, right? So,
there are people like that.
So Rabbi Glatstein, what's the halach of the Sheikh Tzibur forgets yalav v'yavoy? Does he go back?
That would be tirchel de tzibura. If he was yotzei b'shtor Shemona Esrei, and everybody else was yotzei, wouldn't it be tirchel de tzibura?
So,
taking a poll is a bigger circle.
At the end of the parak in Masechta Brachos, in the end of parak Tfilas HaShachar, and the Shulchan Aruch writes in Siman Kuf Chavav Siv Gimel that if the Sheikh Tzibur forgets yalav v'yavoy in Chazaras Hashatz, he does not go back because of Tircha de Tzibura. What do you mean Tircha de Tzibura? He wasn't yotzei the Chazaras Hashatz. Don't worry, if he wasn't yotzei with Shachris, he'll make it up with Musaf. Ask the Stifler going.
What if he forgets to say the same Talamotel?
Oh, we'll get to that. Ask the Stifler going. I understand, according to Rabbeinu Yehuda, there's someone who doesn't say yalav v'yavoy. So what's he missing? He davened. He was yotzei the davening. It's just he didn't say the haisafa of yalav v'yavoy. So this chazan who forgot yalav v'yavoy and shachris will say, "Don't worry, you're davening musaf, so all about yalav, all about Rosh Chodesh anyway." So you didn't say for the tzibur that today's Rosh Chodesh. You'll say it in musaf, no big deal.
But he was yotzei himself.
No,
the
forget.
tzibur was yotzei.
No, but now they have a tzibur obligation. They have a communal obligation to mention Rosh Chodesh. So Elamai, according to Rabbeinu Yehuda, he didn't say it in Shachris. Don't worry, he'll say it in Musaf. But according to the Chachmei Provencia, what happens if you don't say Yalav Yavai?
Won't go so far.
It's not a tefillah. He didn't daven.
Yeah, but this
One second, he didn't daven. So if he didn't daven, what are you telling me? He'll make it up in Musaf time. Make it up in Musaf time. You can't make up Shachris.
No,
with
he
Musaf.
did daven in this case. In this case,
One
he did
second.
daven. Because since he can make it up by Musaf, it's a valid tefillah. Bayrish, Bayrish Choy, Baya, Minchas Shabbos, Bayrish Choydish. It wasn't a tefillah because he can't make it up. So he has to daven again. But here it was a valid tefillah because he can make it up. He can say the Yalav Yavah.
Where?
Musaf?
Saying good.
He can say it by Musaf.
Saying good.
Yalav Yavah.
He had a valid
You can make it up in Musaf.
Where?
Fine, but now the tzibur has an obligation to publicly proclaim that it's Rosh Chodesh.
Really? There is such an obligation?
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point of Chazar Sashatz?
There's some people will ask that because originally Chazar Sashat, most people didn't know, couldn't read.
No. So there's a concept. Fine, that's what the Shulchan Aruch says.
It's like Marav.
But the Gra and others say that there are two chiyuvei tefillah. One is the chiyuv of the yachid, and then there was the tefillah of tefillahs hatzibur. So you'll say, says the Stifler, according to the Chachmei Provencia, that if you miss Yalav Yavai, it's like you didn't daven at all. So what are we saying to the Shatz? Don't worry, you didn't daven Shachris, you'll daven Musaf. So what does Musaf have to do with Shachris? The guy didn't daven a Shachris. If he didn't daven a Shachris, what is Musaf? What's the Musaf doing? The Musaf is just talking about Rosh Chodesh. But the guy, we said together, but you didn't daven. Very nice, you're going to daven a Musaf, but you didn't daven.
But you can't make it a Musaf anyway. There's no Yalav Yavah Musaf.
No, but there's the Haisafa. You're Masker Rosh Chodesh.
Now it's Masker Rosh Chodesh. It's not the tefillah of Yalav Yavah.
No. Yeah, okay, fine.
That's the tefillah. It's the same thing. That's the tefillah. You're Masker.
So Reb Zelig is saying very good. This is what the Stifler says. Why is the halacha that if you didn't say Yalav Yavai, it's like you didn't daven? Why is it like you didn't daven? It's like you didn't daven because since you're mechuyev to daven again, that makes it. It's like you didn't daven the first time. If you have a chiyuv to daven again, it's as if you didn't daven the first time. But a shliach tzibur who is not mechuyev to daven again when he misses Yalav Yavai, because he is able to make it up in Musaf. So if he has no chiyuv to daven again, the Chachmei Provencia would say, for him, it's not like he didn't daven.
What about the tzibur? The chiyuv for the tzibur?
It's not like he didn't daven the chiyuv of the tzibur.
Of what? That chiyuv of the tzibur will make up with Musaf.
So you would make it up with Musaf too? I mean, that's the same.
No, but our question was, we were asking that if any time you miss an addition, it's like you didn't daven at all. So very nice, you have a Musaf to make up the addition, but you didn't daven a Shemona Esrei. So the answer is, since you could make up that Hoysafa, it's not like you didn't daven the Shemona Esrei.
Yeah, I have a question here. There's a chiyuv for Shliach Tzibur to daven again, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get away by many times mincha? People only say till kiddush ahoy chashem nesrei.
Then you have to daven again. Shachris. You have to daven Musaf again.
I mean, if there is a chiyuv of davening,
the whole Musaf is
Tzibur, how do they get away? What halacha is it?
It's a very shver thing. It's a very shver thing. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said that the Hoicha Shemona Esrei you can't do. Only in the yeshiva. Only in the yeshiva.
They do it in Chofetz Chaim.
Only in the yeshiva. The Indian of the short Shemona Esrei, based on what we're saying, that there's a chiyuv on the tzibur, that would be saying you can never do the Hoicha Shemona Esrei. That idea that we're saying.
No, but you see Chofetz Chaim and many other.
So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, he said the union of the short Chazar Sashatz is not when you're on a trip and you're short for time. It's only for yeshivas. And the logic of it is, since they're Masakin Chazar Sashatz, we can't do it at Chasana.
I was this week by Chasana.
No. The logic of Yaakov is saying is, the purpose of Chazar Sashatz is for Amei Haaretz. they were never masaking it in yeshivas where the people are learned. In Bate Knesias and elsewhere, where you could have people come in.
How can Mincha different than Shachris? How can Mincha is different than Shachris?
Yeah, no, what?
Shachris. How can Mincha is different than Shachris?
Again, it's a very big kula. It's a very big kula. So,
but is it? It's not because they're going to go back to sit and learn.
No. That's not what Rabbi Yaakov said. It's not because of Bittul Torah. It's because since they were masaking it for Amei Haaretz and yeshivas.
So what about all the guys that come in to daven with that meaning?
Which one? Oh, they weren't masaking it in this makom. In this makom, they weren't masaking. Okay, Rabbi say. Another point. The Knesset Hagdolah, the Mishnah Berurah brings down like this. What's the halacha if an individual forgot Yal V'Yavai Shachris? What does he have to do?
Repeat.
What if
you could be masakin in Musaf?
No, only the shots could be masakin.
So you have to repeat.
Yeah, you have to repeat. But what if
you didn't answer me? If someone forgets the same talumah.
I'm not talking about that yet. Yeah, right. I didn't answer you.
We'll talk about it later.
That's not the question now.
Okay.
We're talking about Rosh Chodesh.
What's the halacha if a yachid remembers that he didn't say Al V'Yavai in Shachris? He remembers it after Musaf. Says the Knesset Hagdolah, even though a Yachid has no right to rely on Musaf L'Chatchila, but if B'di'evet he first remembers it after he davened the Musaf, he doesn't daven again. He does not daven again. Here, that's a very big kula. The Mishnah Berurah brings this down. That an individual cannot rely on the Musaf. But if he remembers after he davened the Musaf, he doesn't have to daven Shachris again.
In other words, if before Musaf he remembers he has to daven again?
Yeah. If before Musaf he remembers he has to daven again.
What's the difference?
What's the difference? What's the difference? Tircha de Tzibura. For Tircha de Tzibura...
No, a Yachid. There's no Tircha de Tzibura. A Yachid.
Because once he already davened, L'chatchila we tell you to daven again. But B'di'evet, once he davened the Musaf, so we're lenient and we say we'll let it slide.
Hey, Mamri.
Okay? So ask the Stifler like this. According to the Chachmei Provencia, who say that if you didn't say Yal V'Yavai, you didn't daven Shachris, so very nice you daven Musaf.
How do you get away with it?
But you still owe Shachris. According to Rabbeinu Yehuda, I could understand it. Rabbeinu Yehuda says, I daven the Shachris, I'm just missing the addition, so if I remember that I missed the addition after I daven Musaf, we'll say what? We'll say, okay, you said the addition in Musaf, we'll let it slide. But according to the Chachmei Provencia, where if you don't say Yal V'Yavai, it's like you didn't daven. Imagine a guy who remembers after Musaf he didn't daven Shachris. What's the halacha?
Yes, to daven Shachris.
Of course you have to daven Shachris again.
Yeah, but we say that. But we could say the same answer like we said by the...
You have to do Maskir Yom once in the morning, and once in the afternoon, and once at Meyer. So here we did the Maskir Yom.
What?
The same answer like we answered.
When? In Musaf?
Yes.
Yeah, but he didn't daven Shachris.
Yeah, but the same answer. The same answer like we answered by the shop.
Okay, hang on.
There's a special dispensation.
Yeah.
That if you have Haskaras Hayom, Karab Dizman, that you forget. That's the whole idea. The reason that they would say that he didn't daven at all, there was no Maskir Hayom. But here he has a legitimate opportunity to be Maskir Hayom.
But we don't allow you to rely on it.
That's a different with the machlokes.
Okay, so Rabbi said the Stifler wants to say.
Sorry to interrupt. Somebody here parked their car, a Toyota with license plate BPJ. Just got a ticket, so don't...
I got a ticket?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but you blocked the entire... Nobody can get out, not even the ambulance. So it's too late now, because you got the ticket. But you did get a ticket, but just in the future, they ticketed you for parking on the sidewalk.
Oh.
Okay.
But in case anybody has to get out from upstairs, I just got to know it's you. Well, you might as well stay there, but at least I know who it is.
Okay. So the Stifler wants to say that the halacha of the Knesset Hagdolah that says you don't have to daven again is only going according to Rabbeinu Yehuda.
Very good.
But the Chachmei Provencia would say that even after you daven Musaf, you have to daven Shachris again. Rav Scheinberg writes that you can't say such a thing. Because Rav Scheinberg says that the Magen Avram paskins halacha l'maisa, not like the Chachmei Provencia. Because he says, like we learned before,
What number?
number 8, that we're not so sure we pass him like the Chachmei Provencia. He wants to say, in deference to Rabbeinu Yehuda, that if you forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai b'mincha Rosh Chodesh, you can only daven at Tfilas and Adava. And he also paskins like this Knesset Hagdolah. So therefore, l'char, you have to say like this, and this is maybe what you wanted to say.
Yeah, like we said by the
Chachmei Provencia. Why do the Chachmei Provencia say that it's like you didn't daven at all? They only say it's like you didn't daven at all because you have to daven again. But if after you've davened Musaf, we don't say anymore that you have to daven again, then after Musaf, retroactively it comes out that your tefillah was a tefillah.
So he's saying,
which is not as pashut to say, because before you daven Musaf, we say you didn't daven at all, and now all of a sudden that you daven Musaf, it's like you davened. How does by davening Musaf make your shachris into a good tefillah? Before the Musaf, it's like you're a bum, and after Musaf, retroactively, it became like you did daven. Okay. Listen to this case.
Like that. So he's learning Chachmei Provencia would agree with this.
So it could be the Chachmei Provencia would agree with the Knesset Hagdolah. Right. Hey, you ready for this case? This is a very Geshmaka case. You need 5 more minutes, please. A guy davened. Okay, it's Rosh Chodesh. You ready? It's Rosh Chodesh. And if a guy forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai. Shachris. So what happened?
Daven again.
Number 10. And then he davened again. He forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai. Okay, what's that? Yeah, of course.
Not Ma'arif, only Shachris and Mincha.
He forgot in Shachris.
Shachris and Mincha.
And then he davened again. Let's say a simple case. Guy forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai. And then he davened again with Ya'aleh v'Yavai. And he forgot the same Talamat Levracha. So the first time he forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai, and the second time he forgot the same Talamat Levracha. So what do we want from the poor guy? He should daven the third time. He says, Ya'aleh v'Yavai, I daven the second time. The same Talamat I daven the first time. So
the Vilna Gaon said he will daven, he will forget again. He shouldn't daven because
according to the Chachmei Provencia, he will have to daven again. According to the Chachmei Provencia,
naturally,
even though he said the same Talamatar on the first Shemoneh Esrei where he didn't say Ya'aleh v'Yavai, they say it's not a Shemoneh Esrei at all.
Exactly.
So he has to say the same Talamatar.
Either way, this is a Shemoneh
The Chachmei Provencia only said.
According to the Chachmei Provencia.
Wait a minute, don't read into the word. The Chachmei Provencia, as I understand it, said that the tefillah is not a tefillah nafreya only by Haskar Seyom Rosh Hashanah. He didn't say the same Talmud had the same power. Rosh Chodesh. So once he said the same Talmud, according to Chachmei Provencia, the first time he was Yotzei that his guy.
No, he wasn't.
He said it. He said the same Talmud.
Yeah, but it wasn't a valid Shemoneh Esrei.
Because of Ya'aleh v'Yavai.
It wasn't a valid Shemoneh Esrei.
Because of the Ya'aleh v'Yavai.
According to the
a guy again, the first time he missed Rosh Chodesh, and the second time he missed the same Talamat Levracha. Yes. So according to Rabbeinu Yehuda,
he would be Yotzei with the.
He davened the first one with he got the Hosafa of Rosh Chodesh. He davened the second one. He got the Hosafa of the same Talamat Levracha. Now you want him to daven a third time? Nah, daven a third time. What am I gaining? I should say both. I already said both. One in the first one, one in the second one. According to the Chachmei Provencia, the first one answer was no good. According to the second one, the second one was good. You have to daven a third time.
And hopefully won't forget.
No problem making 100 brachos that day.
But what's the halacha? You didn't answer.
So one last thing. Okay, Rabbi, so listen to this case. A guy who forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai, Rosh Chodesh, Mincha, and Mariv is what? Is Chayil. So what's the halacha? Halacha l'maisa?
He davened
the second time as an Adava. Why? Because the Rabbeinu Yehuda would say you're not gaining anything. An Adava. But the Chachmei Provencia would say you should daven again. What about the case like this? A guy who forgot Ya'aleh v'Yavai Mincha time.
That's what you just said.
Yeah. And then Mariv, which is no longer Rosh Chodesh, is Shabbos. Do you daven twice? One Shabbos, and then a second one as an adava?
According to the Chachma Provencia.
So we would say yes. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no. Why? This is number 10 on your sheets. Number 11 on your sheets. Says the Mishnah Berurah, because you're not allowed to daven a tefillas nadava on Shabbos. You can only daven a tefillas nadava during the weekday. There's no tefillas nadava on Shabbos.
Very good.
So it
means he blew it.
So then what would a guy who blows Yalav Yavoy, Mincha, Erev Shabbos, and Friday night is not Rosh Chodesh?
Unless
he blew it.
Unless there is time before Shabbos.
Okay, but if there's no time, the guy blew it. Because you can't daven tefillas nadav on Shabbos.
Why do you do Motzi Shabbos?
No, you only have the adjoining tefillah.
Only one.
Because you get no credit for listening to the adjoining tefillah.
No, you don't daven.
If you have time, so then Stam, you'll say it again.
But don't you have credit for listening to the Shlech Tzibur?
No, you have to say it. No. If you say, okay, you got it? This whole halacha that we're saying, that if you forgot Yalav Yavai by Mincha time, then Marav you'll daven one regular Marav and another Marav as an Adava, that's only on a weekday, but on Shabbos, you can't daven an Adava. Now listen to this case. What's the halacha? If someone forgets the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, Mincha, Erev Shabbos. Let's say during the winter. When you, 1 second. Whoa. Let's get it clear. On Mincha, Erev Shabbos, you forgot the same Tal Umatar Lavracha. So we would say, Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, what's the point in davening Marav twice? There is no V'sein Tal Umatar Lavracha in the Shabbos Tikkushman Esrei. Wait, 1 second.
And you can't make an
What?
1 second.
It's a difference if it's a bakosha or...
1 second.
Excuse me, wait a second.
According to the Chachmei Provencia, what would they say? You didn't daven at all.
Right.
Because you have to daven again if you don't say the same time.
Okay, so you do it on Shabbos.
Fine, so you make it up on Shabbos. So it would be a machlokes or... No.
So it would be a...
You didn't daven, you're allowed... 1 second. According to the Chachmei Provencia, you would have to daven twice on Shabbos. Yeah.
But you can't say the same Talmud. What's the point?
No, but you didn't daven a mincha.
Why can't you say Talmud?
Yeah, no, right. The same thing we said by Yalav Yavai. Now, so it would be machlokes Rabbeinu Yehuda and the Chachmei Provencia. Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, what's the point of davening again? The Chachmei Provencia would say, you didn't daven mincha, so you have to daven again. So since it's a machlokes, what would the Shulchan Aruch say?
Nadava.
Daven again as an adava. But you can't daven adava on Shabbos. Says Reb Chaim Brisker. Not saying the same Tal Umatar Lavracha is different than not saying Yalav Yavai. If you miss Yalav Yavai, so now we could declare, did you miss just an addition, or did you blow the whole Shemana Esrei? But everyone would agree, if you don't say the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, it's like leaving out the bracha Baruch Aleinu. It's a critical component of Shemana Esrei.
So it's not...
And you blew it. And even Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, if you forgot the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, Mincha Erev Shabbos, you have to daven 2 Maravs.
Right.
Comes along the Shas Teshuvas Har Tzvi in Archaim Siman and Daled, and he said, "What are you talking about? If Yalav Yavai is only a Haisafa, certainly the same Tal Umatar Lavracha is only a Haisafa. Why? Because if you don't say Yalav Yavai in Ritzei, could you just stick it in wherever you want?
Yes.
You could stick it in right after Ritzei, before Moedim. But once you start Moedim, you're stuck.
No, it tells you until the last...
You could go back.
You have to go back.
You could go back to Yalav Yavai.
Go back to Yalav Yavai.
But you can't just stick it in. But if someone forgot the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, are you stuck?
You can go back and bought it.
You could stick it in. You could say it's Makalenu. So don't you tell me it's a critical component of Shemana Esrei. If you could stick it in at any juncture, that's just a Haisafa. So if it's just a Haisafa, what would the halacha be if someone forgot the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, Mincha Erev Shabbos?
It would be a Taurus Nadava.
So then your back would be, Rabbeinu Yehuda would say, what's the point in davening again? You're ready, right? You're not saying the same Tal Umatar Lavracha. The Chachmei Provencia would say, well, you didn't daven a Shemana Esrei. So the machlokes would be, what would you do? Misafik, you would repeat it as an adava. But you can't say an adava on Shabbos, so you'd be stuck. So Reb Chaim Brisker would say, if you forgot the same Tal Umatar Lavracha, Mincha time, Erev Shabbos, everyone would agree you have to daven again. The Hartzi would say if you forgot it, everyone would agree you can't say it again.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.